biggest audience we've had. Yeah. Can you hear back there? How about now? Oh, okay. Well, we're here to tell you about the history of GMC trucks, but it's intertwined with Pontiac Motors and shared content. Now, I've been a GMC employee since 1956, retired in 87. Then I worked for military vehicles operation at GM for 10 more years. I'm pretty knowledgeable about the product since I was a service engineer for the first 8 years and then supervised sales engineering and so forth. Ended up in the design group. And, you know, through the years, GMC has been building very good trucks and well received by the customers. But there were a few disgruntled people, like the garage mechanic that said GMC stands for Garage Man's Companion. And then there was another guy that said it was general mess of crap. But I take exception to those.
Sorry.
My assistant, Doug Ritter, has a stronger voice than I have. Mine is only good for about 20 minutes. And he's got at least an hour's worth. So he's going to do the narration here. We formed up the slides together, and I have written a history of GMC. This is kind of an excerpt from that. I'm going to turn the mic over to Doug now.
What was Mr. Chris's first name?
Russell.
Russell?
Yeah, a lot of what, good afternoon, and thank you for coming. A lot of what we're presenting, Don has gleaned from Russell Chris's history of GMC, which got us up to about 1950. And Don, as he just said, hired in a GMC truck in 56. For those of you familiar with the cracker box, you know, the upright cab-over engine, 1959 and 60. Don was there for the prototypes of that. You know, that's when we first brought in air suspension, with the bellows and a few other innovations. And Don's been there for the beginnings of a lot of things.
And the ends of stuff.
And the ends of something. All right, so we're going to present 1911 through 1959. And we'll do a quick review that the ancestral roots of GMC are Rapid, Reliance, and Randolph. William C. Durant acquired Rapid Motor Vehicle Company out of Pontiac, Michigan, and the Reliance Motor Vehicle and Randolph. Reliance also began in Detroit and came up to Owasso, Michigan, which is approximately west of Flint, Michigan. And Randolph was brought in from Chicago, and that man, Eugene Goldman, was a brewer. Randolph sold it back to the founder in 1911. We first developed this, the GMC trucks at the beginning, which talked more about the capitalization of General Motors and the first assembly plants for trucks in Michigan in that, which I just reviewed rather quickly. The middle years go to February 22nd of 1911, when Durant formed the General Motors Truck Company as a subsidiary to General Motors. The logo was first used in 1911, and I believe that was in company letterhead. It actually was first shown as GMC truck at the New York Auto Show in January of 1912. Now on the next photo here, we'll have a Reliance. And if you look closely on the rail of the frame to the left of the front axle, it doesn't come through very well, but I guess most of you, at least in the front half of the auditorium, can see that it says Reliance. And they carried over the original brand for just a few months on the transition from Rapid and Reliance over to GMC. And so we give you some pretty good detail about the model numbers, beginning with 1912. The Rapid trucks were the lighter trucks, the Reliance trucks were the heavier. So you have 1.25, 2 ton, and 3 ton. This next view is model BC, which is your 1.25 ton, applied as a fire truck. In 1913, Reliance trucks were converted to GMC models with the engine under the seat. The H model 3.5, K model 5 ton. This is a HD with a hoist under a platform body. This is a shot from Pontiac, Michigan. That is, as you can see, the engine's under the driver. And before there was an enclosed cabin, we would have said this was cab over engine. This is the old fire station in Pontiac. That corner is now a parking structure, but as a little boy in probably 1956, my brother took me out in the town, which consisted of touring that firehouse. All of a sudden, I think he was looking for girls. The Rapid Street plant was, when Rapid first came to Pontiac, it was in 1905. And the irony of this about Rapid and truck building in Pontiac is that the first truck built in Pontiac was 1905, and there were trucks built in the city of Pontiac until October of 09. So it was about 104 years before that plant closed. That was over on Updike Road. It was formerly known as Pontiac East, and that plant was built in 1972. It was in production from 72 until 2009. The irony of this is that plant's been demolished. The original plant from 1905 is a furniture warehouse. So repurposing can sometimes protect and save buildings. And being in that building, Don, I think the only difference in that furniture warehouse from when it was truck production is that the hoist for the elevator is probably, I hope, iron cable instead of maybe originally rope. It's like a time warp. It's right on the very near south side of downtown Pontiac, and it's still there. This predated linear assembly, and they did use the stall system. In 1982, I saw that. I was in that plant. And to me, the stalls that remained, they were used for storage, but to me, they were about the size, well, probably wider than a horse stall, but not really much deeper. This is the assembly line in Plant 1 on Rapid Street. GM was building electric trucks for about 5 model years, going back to 1912. Don, his name was Lanston, I think?
Yes.
And he was from New Jersey. GM, I'm not sure if it was a licensing agreement or did they buy the design, with GMC truck built electric trucks from 1912 to 1916.
Well, they hired John Lanston to run the
They hired Lanston to run that side of it. Okay, good.
And they did not sell very many electric trucks.
I think from our GMC at the beginning, it said a total of 509.
Yeah.
And that is an electric truck right In 4 or 5 miles, there's 509 units.
And the ironic thing about this truck is it was probably primarily cleaning up horse droppings because horses were still the primary way to move material in those days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting point. The transition from horse-drawn to motorized really happened between 1910 and 1920. The horse-drawn buggy was virtually gone by 1920. I'm sure there were still a few, but I remember in the mid-50s in Pontiac, it was horse-drawn milk delivery. I think that was the very end of it, at least in Metro Detroit. And they transitioned to GMC designed trucks in 1914. 3/4 ton delivery truck. It's model 15, built in Flint by Buick Motor, Buick Chassis. There was as you go through this, you'll see there's a lot of integration between automobile engines, primarily to my eye, and truck applications. 33 horsepower Continental, Model N, 4-cylinder engines, shaft drive. The base price of that vehicle was $1,090. Pneumatic tires were standard, and a cab with windshield and an express body pickup type were available at extra cost. There's a fellow, a founder of AAA, American Automobile Association. His name is Guy Lewis, D-A-I. And his book, America Bid Me Well, he said the greatest advance in automotive technology was a pneumatic tire. If you have ever driven a hard rubber vehicle, you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll know what Guy Lewis was talking about. This is at Ottawa Lake, Michigan. American Truck Historical Society has an annual show moves around the country. This was 1996. It was a Model 15. The GMC truck division was formed in 1915, so it became a formal division in 1915. And you had 5 models, 1 1/4 to 2 ton. Pictured next is a 1915 Model 40 truck with a platform body as it appeared prior to its most recent restoration. It is now in the GM Heritage Collection.
That has hard rubber tires, and the engine is bolted directly to the frame, so the whole truck vibrated from the engine. And it had Armstrong steering.
Armstrong steering.
Yeah.
And the engine was bolted directly to the frame, so there was no rubber isolator. The engine mounts were very rudimentary. A lot of vibration right through. GMC, October 1916, was incorporated in Delaware by William C. Durant. Durant was walked out of General Motors in 1910. He had overextended the checkbook, making a very long story short. And the banks excused him, and between the friends he had on the board at GM and trading 2 GM shares for each Chevrolet share, he got back control of General Motors in 1916. For 2 years, until 1918, General Motors was owned by Chevrolet. Don and I found that down at Detroit Public Library and were very amused. And then they reorganized again in 1918. They did not catch Concho Villa, but they learned a lot about field operations, military applications for our trucks. William Warwick in 1916 with his wife drove a GMC Model 31. It's a 1.5 ton from Seattle to New York in 31 days. I think it still takes 4 today. You push hard. Rock and Tack. On the return trip, they climbed Pikes Peak. that is the vehicle. There were new models added in 1916. Model 16, 21, 70, 71, Model 100, and 101. They all had Continental four-cylinder L-head engines, 33 to 46 horsepower. And this 1916 Model 71, 3.5 tons, is from King County. When you look up real close at that license plate, King County, Washington. And we've taken a lot of expanded photos to the American Truck Historical Society show and put them up on tripods. We used Velcro. And Don, this is the only picture that was ever stolen. We don't know where.
That was at Valley Forge.
Valley Forge in 2000. In the First World War, there's this great shot that we don't have with us. There's an ambulance application, but there's a military drive-away on Franklin Road, which ran really true north-south, just west of the Rapid Street plant. And from the top of the hill and down, it's a wonderful picture. We have to get that done.
Yeah.
How many did we build for World War I?
The ambulances, I think it was 2,100 or something.
About 2,100.
Yeah, they were actually shipping the parts over to France, and the GIs were assembling them over there as well as in our plant.
Final assembly was occurring over in France for those. Yeah, 2,400 23A one-ton trucks for use as troop carriers or to support small aircraft used by. This, I believe, Don, the photograph, I think that's the Rapid Street plant in the background there.
Yeah.
And of course, that area is now all subdivided residential. That's a good shot of the 1 ton. In 20 and 21, 1921, GMC released the new K-Series models. Here is a 1-ton panel truck, K16. You're starting to see enclosed delivery van configuration here. Electric lamps were standard on most models by then, replacing oil and carbide gas lamps. Following is a picture of a model K101T, probably owned by GMC, the heaviest model then offered. Again, the Rapid Street plant in the background. By the way, the Rapid Street truck plant was the first plant, we believe, in the whole world that was built expressly for the assembly of trucks.
The building in the left of that picture is still standing.
That's in the background there, yes. The only building that remains is on the left. That was Consumers Power, and until recently it was a rock climbing, again, adaptive use that saves the building. I'm afraid it's standing empty now, and I'm afraid because when things are standing empty, they tend to get demolished. On the right, the Rapid Street plant, I believe that was demolished in 84 or 85. In 1925, a revised K-Series was introduced, 5 truck models and 3 tractors, 1 to 5 tons, and up to 15 tons for tractors, including the trailer. Northway 4-cylinder flathead engines powered most models in the mid-20s. This next picture is a 1925 K16. It's a 1-ton tank truck, and it is still in our GM Heritage Collection. And by the way, the Heritage Collection is a private warehouse that you can get tours of 10 or more people by appointment ahead of time. Yes?
Northway engines, I've not heard of that.
Northway was a division of GMC for a while. They were built in Detroit.
Northway was a division of GMC for a while, built in Detroit. That's the old Darren Axle plant, right?
Yes, it was.
Down on Kniff.
No,
No?
no.
Down by Hamtramck.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember the name of this road now. But they were a pretty well constructed engine. Did a good job in trucks.
Thanks.
That tank, Don, is probably geared to what the truck could haul. And as more horsepower came, the tanks got bigger.
Yeah, I figured out what the size of that tank was, and it was probably quite an overload for a 1-ton truck.
Right. Never heard of an overload before. The 5 heaviest models, K.T.T, 72, 10T, 102, and 15T, are called big groups. All steel cabs by Fisher as standard equipment. Don and I were talking the other day that when all the bodies were wood frame, Fisher Body probably owned, I think I saw this at the Automotive Hall of Fame here, Dearborn. It seemed like the number was 380,000 acres of hardwood that Fisher Body owned to farm and lumber and build their own wood frames for bodies. So we're looking at a switch over to steel frame. This next is a 3.5 ton dump truck, 3.5 ton, K72, 1925. It's also known as a C-cab and CY.
Where's that Heritage Museum?
That's in Sterling Heights, Michigan. The Heritage Collection, GM Heritage Collection. Now, when I was little, in the 50s and 60s, I kept hearing people talk about yellow cab, and I thought they were talking about the taxis. And somewhere back there, there's a relationship between yellow taxi and yellow cab. But in this case, it was a firm, and I think with the taxis as well, out of Chicago. Yellow cab manufacturing. From 24 through 26, light trucks were replaced by yellow cab trucks built by yellow cab in Chicago. When sold through GMC retail outlets, they proved to be too high priced and were not competitive. The next photo is a 1926 yellow Knight model T2 truck, 41 horsepower Knight sleeve valve 4-cylinder engine.
Question.
Yes.
What were compression ratios like back then?
Not more than 5 to 1.
Compression ratios back then were about 5 to 1.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not a big squeeze.
So octane was really low too.
On August 7th of 1925, General Motors Truck Corporation was formed to own the plants in Pontiac and build GMC trucks. And a month later, Yellow Cab Manufacturing Company was merged with General Motors Truck Corporation to form Yellow Truck and Coach Manufacturing Company. There's a lot of detail to this, but it helps you understand the iteration of how things evolved. There were acquisitions and mergers and reorganizations. In 1926, General Motors truck management and sales moved from Rapid Street to Chicago, and GM Truck Engineering moved from Chicago to Rapid Street. GM re-entered the light truck market in '27 with a half-ton delivery truck designed and built by the Oakland Motor Car Company, as you all know, later to be Pontiac Motor. My father hired him to Oakland in, I think it was late '26 or early 1927. And about 7 or 8 years ago, Don, at the ATH show in South Bend, my brother was in the front row. He's older than me, and he informed me that that's when my father met his mom. They had 4 children, and she died young of staph or something. But I never realized until my brother was piping in from the front row that that's where my father met his first wife. These vehicles resulted from the Speedwagon light truck program initiated by GM. President Alfred P. Sloan to compete with Ford and Dodge. The T11 panel truck in '28 is shown with the sales brochure for that model. Your fenders are still outside the engine compartment. Still got bucket headlamps, but you can see the designs are coming. The new T models with Buick engines in 1927 were released, 6-cylinder valve and head engines. The 1-ton and 2 tons bevel gear rear axles, and the T50 2 tons with worm gear rear axle. In September, another durability run, Cannonball Baker drove a Model T40 tank truck from New York City to San Francisco, 3,700 miles in less than 6 days. Now that's a big jump from, I think it was in 1960 when it was 31. So that tells you you had more horsepower, better conditions and roads to travel on.
He still encountered a lot of bad roads, though.
Yeah. Yes, we encountered some bad roads coming out here from Michigan.
In Michigan.
But it all combined, everything, you know, the infrastructure and the vehicles just made for shorter traveling times. So you're talking about going from 31 days to 4 days in 11 or 12 years. That's a pretty good jump. And we think this guy was crazy. Heavy-duty models like this K.I.T.T 15-ton tractor were carried over the 53 horsepower with 53 horsepower Northway, 414 cubic inch displacement, 4 cylinders. There's your first view of doubles.
That's pretty good. You even got a comforter in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Don and I found, you know, the run flat tires. I sent it out to GM Tire and Wheel, run flat tire that somebody probably thought it was a new design. We found it was at Motor Age down at Detroit Public Library. It was like a cross-section cut. It was a run flat tire, and the design was like 1906 or 8 or something. It was remarkable. They had a pretty good laugh out there in Tire and Wheel. We saw it. The new GM assembly plant, this is a very remarkable story, that the ground was broken July 5th of 27. And on January 3rd of 28, the first truck rolled off one of the new assembly lines. And that's less than 6 months after construction began. I don't know that that's happened anywhere else before or since. So then the Rapid Street plant became Plant 1, and the new plant on South Boulevard became Plant 2. And this photo, you see the white long building on the right half there. The city of Pontiac, this is in the city, but downtown is on the northern edge. You can't quite make it out. But it gives you a sense for the size of the truck assembly plant.
Is that the same power plant as in that previous picture?
No.
No. The Rapid Street plant You almost can see it.
About a half-mile away. And this plant was a third of a mile long.
I think this is downtown Pontiac here, and Rapid Street would be right over here. It was probably maybe a mile and a half away. The following are some examples of late 1920s GMC trucks. This T40, 1928, promoted the Gold Diggers stage play in New York City. Some things don't change. Don and Karen Meyer rode this beautifully restored T30 at the AT&T show at Brooks, Oregon, 1999. This is a 1929 model.
Truck ran very well.
GM worked its way through the Great Depression with a number of strategies. They suspended light-duty production for 33 and most of 34. Excuse me. There were layoffs, pay rate reductions, work hour reductions. But they still released 6 new T-Series models in 1930, which frankly were probably already in process, but they did carry through with it. 3/4 to 7.5 tons. The complete lineup included 14 models. Not too shabby for a depression. The 2 heaviest were carryover King models that were dropped after that year. Emblems, including General Motors truck verbiage, were added to the hood side panels, as you can see on this following 1930 model. It's a T44 3-ton that Mrs. Kelly was driving home. We don't know who Mrs. Kelly is, but her name is on the picture. And that is the original ad building at Plant 2 on South Boulevard. Next is a 31 T18 1-ton. It's the first GMC model to use a Chevrolet-built cab and front sheet metal, except for the grille and hood side panels that were unique to GMC. So there was a lot of cross-pollination between the divisions. A little known fact, GMC built trailers for 10 years. I don't know if any of you have ever seen any, but keep an eye out. You seen some, Justin?
Tim, that you met earlier today with the Pontiac Museum?
Tim Dye, our man right here. Tell me about real quick.
Well, it's called a trail map, and it looks like somebody took a bed from a pickup and made a trailer, but they didn't. Got a straight axle, you drop the tailgate, there's a little step comes down.
So it's like a pickup box car.
Right.
But it has a VIN tag on the front of it, and it has a little arm in the back, so if you're disconnected, you got the usual in the front, but you have one in the back as well, so it can sit independently, you can get in and out of it. But a really neat thing. I think they're quite rare.
Must be. I wonder what the number would be on that, what he just described, like a pickup cargo box, tailgate drops down, and there's a step.
Yeah, I have literature on that.
Yeah.
But it's made to be towed by a car. So it's basically,
Yeah.
like if you have a car, you can have the advantage of having a pickup as well by towing.
Yeah.
And the car better have good brakes.
Yeah. Car would need good brakes. So these are GMC trailers. What did we say, 1930? 31.
31 through 40.
Cooled by Frigidaire.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, Frigidaire, Kettering developed refrigerant in the late 20s. And I think Cadillac would have been the first to have air conditioning, of course. But they were out on the leading edge. GM had a lot of good reputation for innovation, leading edge developments. GMC production dropped below 6,000 trucks in 31. No new models were added in 32. And as we said, light-duty truck production suspended 33 and 34. This following T85, 1932, custom-built tractor hauled tires from Akron, Ohio, to the GMC plant in Pontiac. 130 horsepower, 525 engine, GMC.
This had a built-in sleeper cab.
Yeah, you see the sleeper cab, it was built in.
That was probably like an owner-operator rig today.
One of the first owner-operator rigs. By late 1933, GM was building all the engines used in their medium and heavy trucks. They took over design and manufacture of six-cylinder valve and head engines from Buick in 1929 and 30. GMC Engineering developed three different engine families: the small block 221, 257, the medium 331 and 400, and the large 468 all the way up to 707. Light trucks came back. Here's a 1934 Model 2, Model T23 medium-duty tractor, Kramer Brothers owned. Cab over engine models 34 to 37. GVW from 15,000 to 30,000 pounds. Power plant was mounted on a subframe that rolled out the front for servicing. What follows a T78 6x4. It's a tank truck, Colonial Beacon Oil Company. The largest trucks GMC built in 34 were the T130 6x4 dump truck, rated at 50,000 pounds, 616 cubic inch, 150 horsepower, six-cylinder, 4-speed main and 3-speed auxiliary transmissions. These trucks are shown at the Pennsylvania Glass Sand Company. They worked for them. Also, the Tennessee Valley Authority used some. And in late 34, the light duties came back. 3/4 ton T16, 70 horsepower Oldsmobile, 213 cubic inch flathead engine. The cab and the front end sheet metal were provided by Chevrolet, except again, hood side panels and radiator grille. This next is a 1935 T16, 9,300 pounds. Next, the 1935 T46 tractor, factory installed sleeper cab. We believe this was in front of the Seattle Truck Center. GMC owned factory branches that were factory-owned stores, and by the early 70s, the dealers had lodged a complaint. And I think, Don, we had 48 there in the early 70s. The last truck center to close was 1996 out in Santa Fe Springs, outside of LA. Having been in the Seattle Truck Center exactly once, I'm pretty sure this is where that was. It was right across from the, what's the name of the Dome Stadium in Seattle? Anybody remember? Kingdom, which has also been demolished, right? Or not? Anyway, it was, the Seattle Truck Center was right across from the Kingdom. In In 1936, GM Truck and Coach was established as the sales subsidiary of Yellow Truck and Coach. When Irving Babcock took over as president and general manager in 35, he directed changes in the 36 model line to make trucks look more like cars. 15 models were released as a result, with capacities from 1/2 to 8 tons. More sloping grills, new Chevrolet built cabs, light and medium duty. For the first time, both standard and deluxe models were available with a choice of 10 different colors. Following here is a 1936 3/4 ton panel truck. Are you starting to think Suburban when you see this panel then? In 1936, GMC used 10 different sizes of straight 6-cylinder engines from 213 to 707 cubic inches. All were built by GMC except the Oldsmobile 213, used in light and medium truck duties. Medium duty trucks. The first GMC multi-wheel drive military trucks in 1936. 37, they sold 187 of them to the U.S. Army. They were all new designs for 1937, 12 conventional cabs, 11 cab-over engine models that featured more streamlined two-tone paint schemes. Hydraulic brakes replaced the mechanical type on most models. It's a major turning point in automotive design. The first GMC Suburban Carryall came out in 1937. It's a panel truck with extra windows, seats for up to 8, and a pretty stark interior. We believe this next photo is a prototype. And there is the Suburban. GMC in the current iteration, I believe we're still calling them Yukon XLs now. But it was a GMC Suburban or a Chevrolet Suburban until about 12 years ago. 14 years ago. When Don Meyer was a boy in East Lansing, he saw CJ drive-away rigs like the one in the next photo, hauling out of Oldsmobile. It's a helmet top F-16 tractor, all steel cab over engine. It's a T18 and up for those designs. If you go to the ATHS show, American Truck Historical Society, you will see a few of these. They're still around. In fact, we have a member out in Kansas who has the car carrier that vintage. The most noticeable changes made for 38 were moving the GMC emblem to the top of the grille and eliminating the horizontal louvers on the hood side panels. This following image, a T18 2.5-ton truck with platform body and stake racks, is in our GM Heritage Collection. It's powered by a 239 cubic inch engine rated at 81 horsepower. It's a 6-cylinder. We have taken this to the show before. We thought it was a 37. Don, you remember that at Greensboro? I think it was in 1997. 3 different, and you all have the same expertise with Pontiacs and other. 3 different people came up to us and explained to us that this was a 1938, and they each had their own separate reason. It was very humbling. In 1938, an economic recession resulted in lower truck sales. GMC developed more military trucks, more than 4,400 deuce-and-a-half 6x6. This model 4929 was a prototype for a 3-ton 6x6 troop cargo carrier. And we built, I'm going to jump ahead here, World War II GMC truck built 523,000 of these. Eisenhower said it was one of the five most critical unarmed. He said the five most critical weapons, they were all unarmed, and the deuce and a half was one of the five that he mentioned. Is that some of you have heard of the Red Ball Express after D-Day? That's how we won the war. The bulldozers, which was one of the others that he mentioned, to keep the road open for supply. And the deuce and a halves ran 24 hours a day, every day. The speed limit was 25 miles per hour. As long as you kept moving, you were okay.
And they hauled gasoline to keep the armor running. The Germans ran out of gas. They had to park tanks and retreat.
Yeah, the Germans ran out of fuel. The deuce and a halves moved fuel for the U.S. Army. The new Model A series were announced for 39 light and medium duty trucks, redesigned Chevrolet cabs in front sheet metal. The new cabs had two-piece V windshields, improved vision. GMC helmet steel caps were carried over for heavy-duty models. Front end appearance was enhanced with distinctive bold horizontal bars curved around the front. This next image is of an AC 150 pickup. My wife has no interest in antique trucks. We saw this truck at the ATHS Bloomington, Minnesota show in 1999. And she said, this looks like it'd be a fun truck to own. And I almost fell down. It's a pretty swift looking truck. Totally new model designations were introduced. The AC 100 and 250, medium duty AC 300, ACAF 450, and the heavy 500 and the 890. The C represents conventional cab, F for cab over engine. 74 models in 1939, not including WB variations. In the engine department, GMC 228, 80 horsepower, and 248, 88 horse. Replaced Pontiac and Olds engines in light and medium duty models. 5 new heavy duty gas engines. And next are the 228 and the 248. Diesel engines became available, 2-stroke cycle, exclusively in GMC trucks and in yellow coaches in 1939. Following image, ADC 600 powered by a GM 371 diesel. It may have been a prototype that you're about to see.
And that was called a Screamin' Jimmy.
Screamin' Jimmy. It was pretty loud. 6 new models, 6-wheel models for 1940. Little change from the 39. The following image of a 1948 ADCR 900 tractor looks much like the 1940 900 series, except for the vertical center bar and the grille. So that's about a 10-year jump.
I watched tractors like this pull double steel haul trailers past my home in East Lansing.
Yeah, Hess was centered in Melvindale, and they were out there hauling steel through the Olds plant. The following is a GM diesel 671 and 471 engines that were used in GMC trucks. New light and medium duty for 41. Featured Chevrolet cabs again, sounding familiar. New front end sheet metal, including grills unique to GMC. Alligator type hoods were hinged at the rear, with the top section of the grill integral with the hood. Following is a 41 model CC300 fire truck stationed in the GMC assembly plant after complete restoration. That was GMC's way of celebrating 100 years. Technically, that restoration happened in '02, which was the centennial of GMC Truck Company, we now know as GMC Truck, which was Rapid in Detroit. Yes, sir.
When did the 71 series come out? Is that pre-war?
It's just post-war, wasn't it, Don?
Yeah.
The 71 diesel?
No, actually, they first started building it in 38.
1938 for the
Came out
71.
in trucks in 39. Excuse me. And they had 3, 4, and 6 cylinder versions. 3, 4, and 6 cylinder versions. And they were very noisy but very powerful engine. Later on, of course, they brought out the 8V71, and that was still in production until about 20 years ago.
Yeah, the 8V71 was in production until about 20 years ago. The 71 came out in 38, applied, came to market in 39. That's earlier than I thought. Yeah, this picture was taken at our Kansas City show in 2002. In 1942, the government adopted gross vehicle weight ratings and nominal ton ratings were phased out.
Incidentally, that's Doug driving that fire truck, and his wife, Mary Beth, was riding with him.
You can't see the beautiful woman on the left there. God bless her. These trucks were custom built. The following images for the Texas company. Think of that as Texaco. The cabs probably were built by the tank supplier. This is the Art Deco look you've heard of. That was a big deal back then. GMC built the first CCKW 350, 2.5 ton, 6x6 in 1941. Became the workhorses. With 105 horsepower, 270 engine, they could climb 60% grades and go 48 miles per hour hard level roads. Modified commercial cabs, as shown in the following photo, were used for early production. And yes, there is a winch right behind that front bumper. As I was saying, GMC built 523,000. Between Don was an International and Studebaker, there were another couple 100,000. In the war effort, there were over 700,000 of this model.
Most of the Internationals and Studebakers went to Russia.
Most of the Internationals and Studebakers went to Russia. The United States entered the war in December of '41. The U.S. government suspended all civilian vehicle production in June of '42. All of GMC truck production was dedicated to that effort. Open-type military cabs with canvas tops and side curtains went into production in June of '42. The following photo shows the military spec cab.
And that truck should have had a winch on it.
That truck should have had a winch. As hooks. In 1943, a kit was developed. This is a little known item. The Airborne 6x6, the chassis frame was cut behind the cab and fish belly splicing brackets fastened to the frame rails, as shown in the following illustrations. The two resulting sections would then fit into a military cargo plane and could be air-dropped into the rear area of the combat zone and reassembled on site. An appropriate body would then be mounted on the chassis. This changed the war. GMC also built ducks. Don and I were just over at the original Wisconsin Dells Duck Company, visited with the owner today. They've got how many over there, Don? Total production was about 21,000. They built the prototype, the mule, for this in 39 days. The platform is the deuce and a half, and they turned it into an amphibious frame.
He has 45 ducks in operation.
45 in operation.
And then he has service vehicles and shuttles, and I don't know what the total is.
Don has tracked of 25 fleets of ducks around the world from this production build of 21,000. My wife was on a tour in Florida, down near Venice, Florida. It was a duck-like vehicle that was built by AM General for the Korean War. So there are others of that design out there, amphibious. This is from our GM Heritage Collection. We do have exactly one of these. One sample. And there's an application of it. Saw a really cool picture of a duck, and were there two of them, Don, hauling a plane, was it?
Yeah, they were fastened side by side, and they carried an aircraft.
Yeah, they were lashed together, two ducks, and they were hauling a plane across the water.
That was
a ship.
That was just one of many different ways they arranged ducks to carry stuff.
A lot of variations. They just kept finding new ways to use it, different ways to use the duck. GMC received the Army-Navy E Award for excellence, and by the time that the war ended, GM had built almost 584 vehicles altogether. Here's a breakdown of our assembly for GMC truck in the war effort. Just under the lower right corner, 584,000 almost. Kind of an eye chart, but some pretty powerful numbers that made a terrific difference. Civilian truck production resumed under the control of the U.S. War Production Board. In 1946 and 1947, labor strikes against GM and their suppliers caused a loss of 6 months of production. There was a terrific amount of pent-up demand. And it wasn't just trucks and cars, there's also major appliances. People were buying bonds and hand washing their clothes because of broken machines and so forth. The demand for non-perishable, the bigger ticket items was terrific after the war. Washing machines and refrigerators, so forth. The same for automotive. The EC and EF series light and medium were announced in 1946. Don Meyer saw this vehicle at Brooks, Oregon in '99 at the Pacific Northwest Truck Museum. It's an EC 350. And that is a beautiful truck. It doesn't quite come across, but it's of course it's a bicolor, but it's like a silver and a metallic blue. It's really a pretty truck. I don't think those are factory colors, are they, Dr. Don? Or are they?
Probably not.
There you go. The 1946 lineup included 48 basic models from 4,600 to 55,000 pounds. This concrete mixer was one of the heaviest GMC trucks available, ACW 850. Have a look at the walking beam on your rear axle. The following photo is an EFP 240 walk-in delivery van. It was built by GMC, the body by a subcontractor. New and light medium designs for 47, restyled second series for Chevrolet advanced design cabs and bumper bar grills. The model designation was F as in Frank. Here is an FC 100 Suburban. The following is a 2-ton model FF 350 to illustrate the medium-duty cab-over engine version. That went by the nickname of Cannonball. Heavy-duty A models were carried over with little change. This AFR 650 hauled fence posts through Lansing, Michigan. I think the photo credit there is Don Meyer.
No, I didn't take that.
No?
That's too many posts for me.
Don saw this 48 model ADC 890, super heavy dump truck working off-road in a New Jersey sand pit in 1958. That was a service call, right, Don?
Yeah, investigating some problems.
They got interesting ventilation strategy on the front windshield there. A 1949 H-Series heavy duties, redesigned, HC, HF 520 through 970, replaced the long-running model A models, GMC built cabs, improved appearance, safety, visibility, and driver comfort. More rugged, provided better ride and handling with increased power. This HDCR 900 with the Detroit Diesel 671 engine was shown at the Ottawa Lake Show in Michigan in 1996, American Truck Historical Society. The 1949 lineup included 75 models ranging from 4,600 to 75,000 pounds. So Richfield HFR 750 in California in 1958. Here's the family of engines. The small block 228, the 248, 270. Mid-size and the large block. The diesel engines 471 and 671 were also available. Light and medium duty styling was carried over for 50 through 53, as seen in this 1951 pickup. The side window vent panes were no bright metal trim available due to the Korean War. In 1952, push button type door locks replaced twist type on lightweight heavy-duty tractors. In 1950, there were two, HDCR 640 and HDCR 650. with medium-duty cabs, Detroit 471 diesel engines. They were lightweight, cost less, and competition became very popular in fleets. Saginaw Transfer used several, like the one following, to haul iron castings from GM Saginaw Foundry to the Olds plant in Lansing. Don Meyer took this photo with his mom's brownie box camera, which is now in the Smithsonian. Is that true? That's
I
not
did
true,
take-
but it was
I
his
did
mom's
take the
brownie
picture.
box camera.
The camera's not.
The 471 engine exhaust emitted a high-pitched sound that could be heard miles away. Screaming Jimmy. It's a central Wisconsin trailer.
Yeah,
Okay.
at one of the ATHS convention shows, a fellow came up to me after the presentation and he said, I'd like to get a copy of that photo because my father drove for Central Wisconsin.
Oh, somebody, which show was it? ATHS show?
Yeah,
Came up and wanted a picture. His dad drove for Central Wisconsin. What year was that?
oh, I can't remember now.
For the Korean War, GM received a contract from the Army to build the M135 family of 2.5-ton 6x6 trucks. 145 horsepower, 302 inch to 6-cylinder gas engines, 4-speed hydromatic transmissions, and 2-speed transfer cases. Could be equipped to ford under deep water. They must have been snorkel.
Yeah,
Here you can see the different bodies and equipment that were available. 9,000 of them were built from 51 through 1955. In 51, GMC Truck Engineering built 3 experimental tractors with 275 horsepower DD6 110 engines. Cabs were raised and the hoods were lengthened to make room for the large engines. One of them was field tested in the Pacific Intermountain Express fleet. GM never released the engine. And these ladies worked for the engineering department, and I think this is Don's way of tipping his hat to one of the 3 women who he used to date.
once.
Raise your hand, Don. Raise your hand.
Once.
Don Meyer rode this 1952 model HDCW 950 tractor hauling a large bulldozer for Haddock Transportation in Los Angeles, 1958. The next 2 slides show the 1953 GMC light and medium-duty truck lineup at the Milford Proving Ground in Michigan. Now on the pamphlet, these 2 were side by side. This is the best we can do in the slideshow. Proving Ground was built in the 1920s, 1922. Proving Ground is 4,000 acres. I think it's a square mile, isn't it, Don? It's a pretty big place. In 1954, GMC light and medium duties were carried over from 48 to 1-piece curved glass. Windshields replaced the 2-piece V-type. Grills were extended out over the front fenders on most models for 1954. 114 horsepower 248 engine replaced the 228 as standard. Power steering first offered on a truck. Extra cost. The next image is a 1954 model 350, F350 cab-over engine, the new grille, 1-piece windshield, operated by retail stores delivery. Hydromatic automatic transmissions were first used commercially in the PM 150 package deliveries. In 1953, and were optional in most other models in 1954. The 4-speed was available in light-duty models and in medium duties, combined with a GMC-built 2-speed reduction box. A 7-speed twin hydromatic was optional in certain heavy-duty models with either a 2 or 3-speed reduction unit. Most were later replaced with manual transmissions by GM due to failures of either unit.
That was a total disaster.
The unofficial comment, it was a total disaster. Blue chip models of mid-55 carried over from 54. On March 17th of 55, GMC announced the totally redesigned blue chip light and medium duty models with speedline styling and over 500 improvements. Chevrolet called it the second series. Completely new larger cabs, more modern styling, wraparound windshields, larger glass, much better visibility and driver comfort. The A-pillars slanted back at the lower end. GMCs had unique aero view instrument panels with truck-type gauges. This beautiful 56 model 108 Suburban pickup is one of the GM Heritage Fleet show vehicles. The cab and front end came out mid-55. You'll see you got flush.
You don't have the pictures slide up. There you go.
Yeah.
That's my wife riding passenger.
That's still in the collection. And there's one just like that here, except for the fender side. I don't know if you've seen it. It's turquoise.
It's a nice truck.
It's beautiful. One of you here is the owner of that beautiful truck out here? No? Yes. New V8 gas engines in the mid-55 program was a highlight. V8 engines, 155 horsepower, 287 cubic inch V8 from Pontiac were available in most light and medium duty models through the 500 series. Provided much better performance and was smoother than the standard GMC 6-cylinder. Late in 55, the Pontiac V8 engine displacement was increased to 316 cubic inch, and the rating was raised to 180 horses and carried over to 56. These new models had more appeal for passenger car owners to convert to light trucks. My dad used to say that if Pontiac built a truck, it'd be a GMC, and that if GMC built a car, it'd be a Pontiac. In heavy-duty models, Series 550, 600, and 650, 210 horsepower Oldsmobile 324 V8 engines were standard for 1955 interim and 1956. The reliable and durable 200 horsepower 503 L6 was continued in 630, 660, 670, and 800 series. Following shows Pontiac and old V8 engines. Most models with V8 engines were identified by an 8 suffix in the model designation and V8 emblems on the cowl sides. The light-duty base 6-cylinder engine became the 130 horsepower 270. Electrical systems with V8 engines were upgraded to 12-volt negative ground, while the 6-cylinder jobs continued with 6-volt positive ground systems until 1956. Models with hydromatic transmission standard were identified by an M as a Mary prefix in the model designation. The DF860 Cannonball model was introduced. 55, cab over engine DF860 was popular in line haul fleets that became known as the Cannonball after a popular TV series that featured one. That was produced out of, I think, Toronto, Canada. Anybody remember seeing any of that? Okay. 3? They always talked about going up to Barrie, which is due north of Toronto. Shown next is an Acres Motor Lines 1958 D5860 with a sleeper cab that Don Meyer rode in 1958. The first factory 4x4s in 56. The Pontiac factory using Napco front axles and 2-speed transfer cases. Prior GMC 4x4s had been converted aftermarket. The next photo shows the 56 model 100 Suburban. It was the prototype for the 4x4 option. Don Meyer took the following picture of Sam Brain's tractor-trailer concrete mixer rig in New Jersey in 57. This Model 660 tractor was powered by a 503 L6 gas engine. The gross combination weight was probably about 70,000 pounds. On 2 axles, well, okay, you could say 4.
Oh, that was on 4.
You could say 4, but I'm looking at the trailer. It's like, in 1957, new grills appeared on light and medium models, as shown in this next Model 100 panel truck. The Pontiac V8s were upsized to 347 cubic inch and put out 206 horses. The following shows a 57 model FW550 concrete mixer that poured concrete on the Mackinac Straits Bridge deck. It had a 232 horsepower Olds V8 engine. That would be about a 1956 photograph. My mom brought home a photograph of the bridge under construction. Just a few more segments than that from the suspension. And I think that'd be 56. But he would have poured concrete, not on the suspended portion, but the undergirded portion that's really directly behind the mixer. For 57, GMC offered many heavy-duty models with all-wheel air suspension. However, they were soon dropped due to slow sales. As Don said one time, low market acceptance. Is that how you said it?
Yeah.
It just was such a new idea. I imagine there was a premium. For 1958, new grills with quad headlamps appeared on light mediums, like this 100-8 pickup. Also for the 1958, the GMC version of the Pontiac V8 engine changed to 336 cubic inches, rated at 200 horsepower. That may be the one we have. Or was that a 56? In the panel side came in at 56, didn't it? As a cameo or a Suburban. I think GMC called it Suburban. The panel side was a fiberglass side outer, and Chevrolet called it the Suburban. Chevrolet called it the Cameo.
Yeah, cameo.
And those were the forerunners of the fleet side. Up to that point, it was all fender side with the narrower cargo box. Now the fender housings are inside the cargo box. Yes, sir.
58 was the year they changed to quad headlights for Pontiacs too. I don't know, maybe Oldsmobiles and other. Was that a corporate level?
Yes.
Yeah, he's noting that 58 was the year Pontiac went to quad headlamps. And Don is affirming that that was a corporate decision.
All cars have.
Yeah, thank you. Also new for 58 was model D860 with a short conventional cab and the DD671 SE economy diesel engine rated at 189 horses. Based on the older DR800 that had air suspension, the D860 had conventional steel spring pads. Don Meyer took the following photo of Georgetown, Ohio in 1959. You see the tank is much bigger now than it was in 1920. For 1959, GMC released 2 innovative lightweight tractors featuring 4-wheel air suspension, the first GMC aluminum tilt cabs, and rigid fabricated steel frames. The DLR 8000 had a DD671 SE engine with a setback front axle and cruciform frame that allowed 1,800 pounds of additional payload compared with conventional tractors. That's a lot of money for payload. The DFR 8000 used a DD6V71 SE engine with a set forward front axle and a ladder type frame. The next photo is Schroyer's beautiful DLR 8000. The Schroyer family is out of Salina, Ohio. They've been very active in American Truck Historical Society over the years. George was a secretary, I don't know how far back, forever. Yeah, it's like a 3 or 4 generation trucking company. They're northwest of Dayton, Ohio. This brings us to the end of our middle segment. We need to build that final, we need to build the final down. Thank you for your attention. Are there any questions? Yes.
That last picture with that cab over, could you run that without a trailer?
Oh, yeah.
That'd be pretty rough to run that bobtail on a trailer.
Oh,
Did you have front brakes then?
yes,
Huh.
yes, and it rode quite well, bobtail.
Really?
I remember driving, yeah, because of the air suspension.
Okay.
Yeah, the ride and handling of those air suspended jobs was very good.
Huh.
Go ahead and repeat that
Yeah, I had the
Closer, Don, closer.
I had the pleasure of driving prototypes of both the set forward axle and the set back axle version. It was four-wheel air suspension. And they all rode good and they handled well. It was, really an outstanding truck for the driver, but people were concerned about the airbags. They were proven on coaches, but truck operators were not that much enamored with them. And the other thing was that the cost was considerably more than the spring job. So that was.
The airbags paid off on the bobtail. Yes.
Did GM make any special models for like working on Hoover Dam?
Any special models by GMC for Hoover Dam?
Because it's such a big project.
No. Let me have the mic. The trucks used on Hoover Dam were primarily Max and Whites. And they were, specially equipped. They didn't have cabs. They were pretty crude, but they hauled a lot. And GMC did not, to my knowledge, have any of the regular haulers, although they may have had some service vehicles.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
At what point did engine isolation become standard? When they went away from hard mounting the engine to the chassis?
Softer mounts.
Yeah, especially for a 400 cubic inch 4-cylinder, would just shake a vehicle apart.
Right.
And then curious about the development of isolated mounts.
I think engine mounts were developed in the 20s, as I recall. But as late as the 30s, the first Cummins 4-cylinder engines were put into trucks, and they shook so bad that they shook the window glass loose.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
That custom camper car hauler out there, if you saw it, yellow and white, was a low cab forward something or other. Do you know what that meant? He didn't really know.
Where did you see that?
It's here at the show. He's a guy from Canada. It's a 59, I believe, low cab forward, and he made a custom camper car hauler out of it. It's just gorgeous. You got to go out and see it.
Yeah. That was featured in the last issue of the GMC Times magazine. And the low cab forward was kind of a compromise between a conventional cab and a cab over engine. It made a shorter truck than the conventional cab, but it wasn't so high to get up into as a cab over.
Okay, gotcha.
We'll have to get a look at that.
Yes.
Any other questions? Great turnout. Thanks for, go ahead. One more. Take it.
Question is, where in the range of available commercial trucks did the GMC, like, were there bigger, heavier duty vehicles for bigger loads, or was GMC playing at the top end of the range?
Yeah, let me
Tell them about the new developing program.
Actually, throughout most of GMC history, GMC offered a large range of capacities, all the way from a half ton to 10 ton or more, and they were good products across the board. Now, regarding our current situation, I'm sure you all know that in 1987, General Motors discontinued heavy trucks, and a couple of years later, the medium-duty trucks. Now, GM and Navistar have formed a joint venture and are going to be building a truck that has a Navistar chassis, a GM powertrain consisting of the Duramax diesel and Allison automatic transmission, and a cab that's kind of a new design with input from both manufacturers. And that's due to come on market late this year.
It's going to be built where now?
It's going to be built in the Navistar plant in Fort Wayne, I think it is.
Any other questions? Great turnout. You've been well behaved. Appreciate your attendance and your attention.
And I didn't see anybody go to sleep.
My voice does that for some. I caught a couple of you out there. Thank you very much. That concludes our program.
What time do you have?
2:28.
Hi, my name is Denise Potter. I'm one of them. I was wondering if I could ask you about what you might know about the 78 GMC Sierra Classics. My sister has one. It's going to be here for the show on Thursday. No, that's not a, that's a long bed. It's not a Sierra.
Let me show you something that you might find useful.
I just got one from the house.
This is your umbilical source.
6,000 cars. We do
This is
7 cities.
fairly